When a Hollywood superstar walks into a grocery store on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, nobody expects anything remarkable to happen. He is not there for cameras. He is not there for fans. He is wearing a gray beanie pulled low, dark jeans, and a plain black jacket. He has a small basket in his hand, with a bottle of water and a protein bar inside it. He is just a man who stopped in to pick up 2 things on his way somewhere else. But then the line slows down, and he looks up, and he sees her. Her name is Maricela. She is 39 years old. She has not slept more than 5 hours in 3 days. Not because she is sick, because the electric bill came in $14 higher than she planned for. And when you are living on the edge of a number, $14 changes everything. She is standing at the register of a Ralph's grocery store on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood, California, on a Tuesday in November 2023, and she is counting coins out of a small zipper pouch into her palm. She had done the math 3 times before she left her apartment that morning. A gallon of milk, 2 cans of beans, a bag of rice, a box of mac and cheese, bananas that were already turning soft because those ones were 40 cents cheaper, a jar of peanut butter, 1 apple, just one. She had calculated $41.70. She had $43 in her wallet. Then the bananas rang up wrong, and then a price check. And a manager with a blank face explaining that the sale ended last week. And suddenly, she is $4.12 short, putting things back on the belt one by one. The peanut butter first, then a can of beans, and then she is holding the apple, and she cannot make herself put it back. That is when the voice comes from behind her. Low, calm, unhurried. "I've got it." She turns around slowly, and she is looking at Keanu Reeves. He does not make a speech. He does not pull out his phone to record the moment. He hands his card to the teenage cashier and says 3 words that will change the entire direction of this story in ways nobody in that store could have possibly predicted. Run the whole thing. Now here is where most people think the story ends. Famous actor pays for struggling mother's groceries. A small, beautiful moment. A feel-good story that disappears by the next morning. The kind of thing that happens and then is forgotten, because the world moves fast, and kindness, unless it goes viral, rarely leaves a mark. But this story does not end in the grocery store. It does not even really begin there. Because when Maricela pushes her cart into the November sunlight and loads her bags into her old Honda Civic with the cracked taillight covered in red tape, he follows her outside. Not in a strange way. In the way that some people cannot stop themselves from checking on other people, because caring is just built into them so deep they have forgotten how to turn it off. And they talk. And she tells him about her 2 jobs, about her son, about the 13-year-old boy she is raising alone since his father died 6 years ago. And then she does something simple that she will think about for a very long time afterward. She shows him a photo. A boy with wide dark eyes and a gap between his front teeth, holding a trophy, grinning the way kids grin when they have not yet learned to be embarrassed by how happy they are. Keanu Reeves looks at that photograph, and something moves across his face, something she cannot name, not pity, not surprise, something much older and much deeper than either of those things. He says nothing. He hands her back the phone, and he walks away. But 3 days later, Maricela's phone rings. And what she finds out on that call will bring her to tears in the front seat of her car in a parking lot on Vermont Avenue, crying, the kind of crying that only happens when something sealed shut for years finally breaks open all at once. And that is only the beginning. Because what Keanu Reeves saw in that photograph, what it meant to him personally, what it unlocked for a 13-year-old boy who had been waking up at 5:45 every morning to work on something he believed could change the world for the people who needed it most, and the secret that boy had been carrying alone because he loved his mother too much to hand her one more problem. All of that is a story that will take your breath away. There is a letter coming. written by hand, no return address, no signature at the bottom. There is a sentence in that letter about losing someone before you ever got to find out who they were going to become. And when Theo reads that sentence, and when his mother tells him who she thinks wrote it, and when the full truth of what one moment in a grocery store quietly set in motion becomes clear, you are going to feel it somewhere you did not expect to feel anything today. Stay with us through every chapter of this story, because the moment everything is finally revealed, the moment the photograph, the letter, the grief, the science project, and the parking lot all connect into one single extraordinary truth, is worth every minute of the wait. Her name was Maricela Vega. She was 39 years old, and she had not slept more than 5 hours in 3 days. Not because she was sick, not because something dramatic had happened. She had not slept because the electric bill had come in $14 higher than she budgeted for. And when you are living on the edge of a number, $14 is not a small thing. $14 is a decision. It is the difference between the rice and the protein, between the bus pass and the walking. She drove to the Ralph's on Sunset Boulevard in Hollywood that Tuesday morning in November 2023 because it was 2 miles farther from her apartment than the closer store, and she knew this one restocked the bread fresh on Tuesdays. The parking was easier here too. These were the kinds of calculations that filled her days now. Not big decisions, small ones. Which store? Which day? Which bread costs less per ounce? You become very good at math when math is all that stands between you and a phone call you do not want to make. She had written her list in blue pen on the back of an old envelope. She had done the addition 3 times before she left the apartment. A gallon of whole milk, 2 cans of black beans, a 5-pound bag of rice because the per-ounce number worked out better than the 2-pound. A box of mac and cheese. A bunch of bananas that were already going soft because those were marked down 40 cents. A small jar of peanut butter. 1 apple. Just one. Total, $41.70. She had $43 in her wallet. $1.30 of breathing room. She had breathed easier on that thought the whole drive over. She put everything on the belt carefully, the way you do when you know exactly what is there and why. The cashier was a teenager named Destiny, with long pink nails and a phone lanyard around her neck. Destiny scanned without looking up. Maricela watched the screen. The bananas rang up wrong. The sticker on the bunch said 49 cents. The screen said 89 cents. 40 cents. Only 40 cents. But Maricela's breathing room was $1.30, and 40 cents was not nothing when you were doing that kind of math. She asked Destiny to check the price. Destiny called for a price check over the intercom without expression. The line behind Maricela grew. She could feel the shift in energy, the small impatience of people who had places to be and money to spend without counting it first. She did not turn around. She looked at the belt. The price check came back. The sticker had been left by accident from last week's sale. The manager, a heavy-set man named Carl, explained this with the blank, practiced politeness of someone who repeated explanations all day long without caring about any of them. Maricela nodded. She understood. She reached into the small zipper pouch inside her wallet where she kept coins, and she counted out what she had. She was $4.12 short. She started putting things back. The peanut butter first, because they could do without that. Then one of the cans of beans. Then she picked up the apple and held it. "I've got it." The voice came from directly behind her, low and unhurried. It was the voice of someone who was not interested in being noticed for what they were about to do. She turned around slowly. He was wearing dark jeans, a plain black jacket, and a gray beanie pulled low over his forehead. He had a beard going silver at the jaw. He was holding a small shopping basket with a bottle of water and a protein bar inside it. He had not come here for a big shop. He had simply stopped in. And now he was standing in her line, holding out his card toward Destiny like it was the most ordinary thing in the world. She recognized him the way you recognize someone when your brain is running a second behind your eyes. Slowly. Then all at once. "No, please," she said. The words came out fast. "I'm fine. I just need to put a couple things back." "You don't need to put anything back," he said. He looked at her directly when he said it. Not through her, the way famous people sometimes look at regular people. At her. "And you're not fine. That's okay. None of us are fine all the time." He handed his card to Destiny. "Run the whole thing," he said. His name was Keanu Reeves. Destiny ran the whole thing. She did it without blinking, the way teenagers do when something remarkable happens directly in front of them, and they decide, in real time, that being cool about it is more important than reacting. She handed Maricela the receipt. Maricela took it. Her fingers were not entirely steady. She said thank you. Twice. Both times quietly, looking at the floor between the words. Because gratitude that size does not always know where to put itself. He nodded once. He did not make a speech out of it. He did not say no problem or happy to help, or any of the things people say when they want credit for kindness. He just nodded, the way you nod when something is simply the right thing, and you both know it. Maricela pushed her cart into the November sunlight and loaded the bags into the back of her 2009 Honda Civic. The car had a crack in the back left taillight she had covered with red electrical tape 7 months ago. She had told herself she would fix it properly when things were better. Things had not been better yet. She did not cry inside the store. She had trained herself against that years ago, in the months after her husband Ramon died, when she had cried in so many public places that she had eventually run out of them. Grocery stores, bus stops, the waiting room of a social services office on Alvarado Street. She had cried in all of them, and then she had decided, quietly and without ceremony, that she was done with that. She had a son to raise. Crying in parking lots was still allowed. That was the one exception she kept for herself. She put her hands flat on the roof of the Civic and breathed. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The way the therapist had shown her before, she could no longer pay for the therapist. She heard footsteps on the asphalt behind her. "You okay?" She turned. He was standing a few feet away, hands in his jacket pockets. He had followed her out, not in a strange way, not in the way that would make a woman tighten her grip on her keys, but in the way that some people follow other people outside because they cannot help checking. Because caring is a reflex for them, and they have stopped trying to turn it off. "I'm sorry," she said, and she genuinely did not know what she was apologizing for. Being seen, maybe. Taking up space in his afternoon. "Don't do that," he said. Not harsh, just clear. She almost smiled. They stood in the parking lot of a Ralph's on Sunset Boulevard, and she told him, without having planned to tell anyone anything that day, that she worked 2 jobs. Dental receptionist 3 mornings a week. Call center agent 4 nights a week, for a health insurance company. She said that last part with a short laugh, because the irony had never stopped being funny to her in a dark way. Working for a health insurance company without being able to afford health insurance yourself was the kind of joke that only landed if you were the punchline. He listened with his whole face. No phone in his hand, no eyes drifting over her shoulder, just listening, present and still, the way people used to listen before the world gave everyone somewhere else to be. "Do you have family here?" he asked. "My son," she said. "He's 13. Something changed in his expression. Small. Almost nothing. Like a door moved 1 inch without opening. "What's his name?" he asked. His voice was careful in a way it had not been a moment before. She pulled out her phone. The lock screen was a photo she had taken 3 weeks earlier at Theo's soccer tournament in Griffith Park. A boy with wide, dark eyes and a gap between his 2 front teeth, holding a trophy almost as tall as he was, grinning in the full, unguarded way of someone who has not yet learned to be embarrassed by their own happiness. "Theodore," she said. "We call him Theo." Keanu Reeves looked at the photograph. He looked at it for a long time. When he looked up, his expression was something she had no word for. Not pity, not surprise, something older than both of those things. He said nothing, but Maricela would think about that face for months. Theo Vega woke up every morning at 5:45. Not because his alarm went off at 5:45. His alarm went off at 6:15. He woke up early on purpose, before the building came alive with the sound of other people's mornings, before the neighbors above them started their coffee maker that shook the pipes, before his mother's alarm broke the quiet. He liked the apartment best in those 30 minutes, the gray light coming through the kitchen window, the city outside still deciding whether to wake up, just him and his notebook, and the particular silence that belongs only to people who are working on something they believe in. He was working on something. It had started in the spring of 6th grade, 18 months earlier, when his science teacher, Mr. Okonkwo, rolled a projector cart to the front of the room and showed the class a documentary about water shortages in sub-Saharan Africa. The projector bulb had a dead spot in the lower left corner, so the picture had a permanent dark triangle across the bottom of the screen. Most of the class lost interest inside 15 minutes. The kid next to Theo put his head on his desk and slept with his eyes open, which was a skill Theo had always respected. Theo did not lose interest. He watched the whole thing, and he kept watching it, even after it ended in his head on the bus ride home. There was a girl in the documentary. She was 9 years old. Every morning, she walked 3 miles to a river to collect water in a yellow plastic jug. The water made people sick. She knew it made people sick. She collected it anyway because there was no other water. She did this every single day, as if it were as ordinary as brushing your teeth. Theo had thought about her every day since. He went home that night and opened his mother's laptop, which she let him use from 7 to 9 on school nights, and he typed, "How to filter dirty water," into the search bar. That search led to another, and another. By 10 o'clock, when he was supposed to be in bed, he was 3 research papers deep, into activated charcoal filtration systems, reading sentences with words he did not know yet, stopping to look up each word before moving forward. He did not take shortcuts with words. His mother had taught him that words were tools, and you did not skip learning how a tool worked just because it was unfamiliar. By the time 7th grade began, Theo had a prototype. He had built it from a 2-liter plastic bottle, activated charcoal he bought for $4, from a fish tank supply store on Kawenga Boulevard, sand he collected from the drainage channel behind their apartment building, and cotton pulled from an old pillow his mother had been meaning to throw out. He had watched 47 YouTube videos. He had filled 3 separate notebooks with diagrams, measurements, and questions he did not yet know how to answer. He called it Aquapath. The prototype worked. Not perfectly. The water that came through the bottom was cleaner than what went in, measurably so, but not clean enough to drink safely. It was better, though, and Theo held on to better the way a climber holds a ledge. Better meant the direction was right. Better meant the next version could be more than better. He entered the school science fair in October. He won 2nd place. The judge, a researcher from Cal State LA named Dr. Patricia Howe, had spent 11 minutes at his table, which was longer than she spent at any other. She had told him the concept was scientifically sound, but the execution needed precision. He had written down every word she said, in the small notebook he kept in his back pocket, for exactly this kind of moment. He went home and rebuilt. He entered the Los Angeles County Science Fair in January 2024. 27 finalists. He was the only student from his school. His display board had been made from a cardboard box he had cut apart and taped flat, covered in printed diagrams and hand-drawn charts. Some of the other students had professional foam boards with laser-printed graphics. One had a working digital display. Theo had his notebook and the ability to answer every single question the judges asked him. He did not win, but afterward, the regional science coordinator, a tall, soft-spoken man named Dr. James Whitfield, pulled him into the hallway outside the gymnasium and told him something that Theo had written on a piece of paper and taped above his desk that same night. This is not a losing idea. This is an early-stage idea. There is a difference. What Theo did not know, what nobody had told him yet, was that Dr. Whitfield had gone home that same evening and written an email. He had forwarded Theo's project summary, his hand-drawn diagrams, and a paragraph of his own words about the boy who had built a water filter for under $20, because a 9-year-old girl in a documentary could not stop thinking about a river. He had sent it to a program at MIT called the Young Innovators Initiative. The YI selected 6 students each year from across the entire country. 6. It offered mentorship from working scientists, a $5,000 development grant, and a place at the annual summit held in Cambridge, Massachusetts. The application had one deadline, December 15, 2023. Theo had found the program himself, 2 weeks before Dr. Whitfield's email arrived. He had filled out most of the application alone at the kitchen table at 5:45 in the morning, in the quiet he kept for working on things he believed in. He had written his project description. He had written his personal statement in 3 drafts, throwing out the first 2 because they sounded like someone trying to impress people rather than someone telling the truth. He had stopped at the financial section. The program required an upfront fee of $250, refundable upon acceptance, but required to apply. $250. He had closed the laptop and sat in the gray morning light for a long time. He had looked at the sentence above his desk. This is not a losing idea. This is an early-stage idea. He had not told his mother. He knew her math the way children of struggling parents always know it, quietly and precisely, without being taught. He knew what $250 meant in their apartment. He knew what it cost her to pack 1 apple instead of 2. He knew that the bleach stain on her hoodie was still there because a new hoodie cost money she was not spending on herself. He could not hand her a $250 problem, so he carried it alone, the way she had taught him, without meaning to teach him, to carry the hardest things. 3 days after the parking lot at Ralph's, Maricela's phone rang during her lunch break. She almost let it go to voicemail. She was sitting in her car in the parking lot of the dental office on Vermont Avenue, eating a sandwich she had made at 6 in the morning, before the world had fully started. Turkey on wheat bread with mustard, because mayonnaise cost more, and they could not taste the difference anymore. She ate lunch in the car most days. The office break room had a table for 4, and usually only 1 other person in it, which somehow made the silence heavier than eating alone outside did. The number was a Los Angeles area code she did not recognize. She answered on the 4th ring. The voice on the other end was calm and professional, and belonged to a woman named Sandra Park. Sandra explained that she worked for the Arch Foundation, a private charitable organization based in Beverly Hills that directed funding toward education and youth development across Southern California. She spoke with the measured warmth of someone who delivered good news regularly but never got careless about it, who understood that good news landing on the wrong day in the wrong way could still feel like too much. Sandra said the foundation had become aware of Theo's Aquapath project through a referral she was not at liberty to identify. She said the foundation wanted to cover the program fee for the Young Innovators Initiative in full, $250, no repayment, no conditions, no strings of any kind attached to it. There was also, Sandra continued, an additional gift. An anonymous donor had contributed a $500 educational supply stipend specifically designated for Theo to continue the development of Aquapath. The money would be deposited into an account in Theo's name as soon as Maricela was ready to set one up at any bank of her choosing. Maricela sat in the front seat of her Civic with the turkey sandwich in her lap and she said nothing for 11 full seconds. She had counted them later. 11. Who referred him? She asked. I'm genuinely not able to share that, Sandra said. The donor was very specific about remaining anonymous. That condition is absolute. Maricela looked through the windshield at the dental office building. A woman was pushing a stroller past the entrance. A man was talking on his phone with his free hand moving like he was conducting something. Ordinary Tuesday afternoon. The world going on the way it always did, indifferent to the fact that something extraordinary was happening inside a small Honda Civic in the parking lot. She thought about the gray beanie pulled low, the silver at the jaw, the way he had looked at her phone screen like he was looking at something that mattered deeply and personally to him. The way his expression had shifted into something she still had no word for. She pressed Sandra for more. Sandra held the line with polite, practiced firmness. Anonymity was not a suggestion. It was a promise already made to someone else. Maricela said yes to the gift. She hung up and sat without moving for 4 more minutes. Then she called Theo. He answered on the second ring, which meant he had been near his phone, which meant he was working on something. Theo, she said. Her voice came out steadier than she expected. Tell me about a program at MIT. The silence on the other end was the specific silence of a child who has been found out, not panicked, just caught. The silence of someone deciding quickly how much truth to lead with. Mom, he said, I didn't want you to have to worry about the, how much is the fee, she said. Another silence. Shorter this time. It was $250, he said carefully. Was. What do you mean was? His voice changed completely when he answered. The careful steadiness cracked open, and something younger came through. Something he usually kept tucked away under the early morning notebooks and the 47 YouTube videos, and the responsible, quiet maturity of a boy who had watched his mother count coins too many times to ever be careless about money himself. Someone paid it, Mom. His voice was barely holding. I got the confirmation email an hour ago. I've been sitting here just staring at it. I got in. They accepted me. I'm one of the 6. Maricela Vega put her head down on the steering wheel of her 2009 Honda Civic, and she cried. Not the controlled parking lot kind, where you breathe carefully and keep your chin up and allow yourself exactly enough. The other kind, the deep kind. The kind that only comes when something that has been sealed shut for a very long time finally breaks open all at once, and you realize in the breaking that you had not known how tightly you had been holding it. She cried for Ramon, who had not lived to see this. She cried for the bleach stain on the hoodie, and the 1 apple, and the $14 electric bill, and all the small impossible math of the last 6 years. She cried because her son had carried a $250 problem alone rather than hand it to her, and because that was both the saddest and the most loving thing she had ever heard. She cried until she was empty. Then she wiped her face on the sleeve of her gray hoodie, started the car, and drove back to work. The MIT campus in March is cold in a way that feels intentional. Not the wet, heavy cold of a storm coming. The dry, sharp cold of a place that has been thinking hard for so long that the air itself has grown serious. The buildings are old red brick and wide stone, and they sit along the Charles River like they have always been there and always will be, certain of themselves in the way that only very old things can be certain. Walking through the main gates for the first time, you feel small, not because the buildings are trying to make you feel small, but because greatness has a gravity, and you are standing inside it. Theo Vega walked through the infinite corridor on a Thursday morning in March 2024, wearing his blue soccer jersey, layered under a borrowed winter coat, 2 full sizes too big for him. The coat belonged to his neighbor Mr. Delgado from apartment 4B, who was a large man with a generous heart and no opinion whatsoever about fashion. Theo had thanked him 3 times. Mr. Delgado had waved him off and told him to bring back something good from Boston. Theo carried his Aquapath prototype in a hard-shell case Maricela had found at a Goodwill on Virgil Avenue for $6. She had lined the inside with foam she had cut carefully from an old couch cushion using kitchen scissors, measuring the pieces twice before cutting, the way she did everything that mattered. When Theo had opened the case and seen the foam fitted perfectly around the prototype, he had not said anything. He had just looked at her. She had looked back. Some things between a mother and her son do not need words because the words would only make them smaller. He was the youngest of the 6 young innovators by 8 months. He was the only one from a public school. He was the only one from East Hollywood. He was the only one whose total material cost for his project was less than $20, a fact that one of the other students, a polite girl from Connecticut named Vivian, had asked about with genuine curiosity and zero unkindness. Theo had told her the number plainly. She had looked at the prototype with new respect. He liked her immediately for that. He presented Aquapath on the second day of the summit to a panel of 5 people seated behind a long table in a conference room that smelled like old books and fresh coffee. 2 MIT professors, a program officer from the Gates Foundation named Mr. Ibarra, who took notes without stopping, a water systems engineer from Seattle named Dr. Paul Renner, who leaned forward during Theo's entire presentation with his elbows on the table and his chin in his hands, and a scientist from the EPA named Dr. Carla Nguyen, who specialized in portable water purification systems for emergency disaster relief, and who had the particular focused energy of someone who had spent her career treating clean water as the urgent moral issue it actually was. Dr. Nguyen asked Theo 9 questions. He answered 8 of them correctly and completely, in clear sentences, without rushing, the way Mr. Okonkwo had taught him to present. Lead with what you know, follow with how you know it, and never pretend the gaps are not there. For the 9th question, which was about scaling the filtration membrane for industrial production, he paused for 3 full seconds. Then he said, "I don't know yet, but I am going to find out, and I already know where to start looking." Dr. Nguyen wrote something in her notepad. Later, she would tell the panel that in 20 years of evaluating young scientists, the 9th answer had impressed her more than the 8 correct ones. Because knowing what you do not know yet, and being unafraid of it, is rarer and more valuable than any single correct answer. It is the difference between a student and a scientist. Theo did not know she had said this. He was in the corridor outside, eating a granola bar, and thinking about the 9-year-old girl with the yellow plastic jug, who still walked 3 miles every morning in his mind, every single day, the reason he had started all of this, whose name he still did not know and thought about anyway. On the final evening of the summit, the program held a dinner at Harvest Restaurant on Brattle Street in Cambridge. White tablecloths, candles in small glass holders, the kind of menu where the guest copies had no prices printed on them, which Theo noticed within 30 seconds of sitting down. He was his mother's son in the deepest possible way. He noticed the math of every room he entered. The other 5 students were talking about universities, about future plans, about internships and accelerators, and the kind of forward momentum that came naturally to people who had always been told their forward momentum was expected. Theo listened and contributed and laughed at the right moments, but the back of his mind was somewhere else entirely. It was in a village without running water. It was with a girl and a yellow jug, and a river that made people sick. It was in the 3 notebooks on his desk at home, and the sentence above them, and the borrowed coat, and the foam-lined case, and his mother wiping her face on the sleeve of a gray hoodie in a parking lot he would never stop being grateful for. After dinner, a program coordinator named Ellen Marsh found him by the coat racks and told him quietly that Dr. Nguyen wanted to talk. Not in a general way, not a polite closing night conversation. She wanted to connect him with her team. Dr. Carla Nguyen did not waste time on small talk. She found Theo standing near the restaurant entrance with his borrowed coat already on. his hard-shell case at his feet, looking like someone who had been told extraordinary news and was still deciding where inside himself to put it. She shook his hand the way adults shake hands with other adults, without adjusting for his age, which he appreciated more than he could have explained. She told him about the EPA's junior affiliate program in the same direct, unhurried way she had asked her 9 questions that afternoon. The program identified exceptional young scientists working on problems that aligned with the EPA's core mission areas. It provided mentorship from active researchers, access to certified laboratory facilities, and a formal advisory relationship that carried genuine weight in the scientific community. Not a trophy, not a certificate for a college application, a working relationship with people doing real work on real problems in the real world. The program had never accepted anyone under 16. Theo was 13 years and 4 months old. Dr. Nguyen told him this directly, the way she told him everything. She said the age threshold existed for practical reasons and that she intended to recommend an exception. She said the word recommend carefully, so he understood it was not yet a certainty. She said she believed Aquapath, in its current early stage, addressed a genuine gap in low-cost emergency filtration solutions that her team had been discussing for 2 years without finding an approach they were satisfied with. She said she thought he might be the approach they had been looking for. Theo stood by the coat racks of a restaurant on Brattle Street in Cambridge, Massachusetts, in a coat that did not belong to him, and he did not say anything for a moment. Then he said, "When would I know?" She said 2 weeks. He nodded. He thanked her. He shook her hand again. Ellen Marsh walked Dr. Nguyen back toward the remaining guests, and Theo stood alone for 30 seconds, before he remembered that he needed to call his mother. His phone was dead. He had forgotten his charger, which was still plugged into the wall outlet beside his desk at home in the apartment on Fountain Avenue, next to the sentence taped above it, next to the notebooks. He found a hotel phone at the front desk of the Marriott across the street, a thing he had not used before and which felt strangely formal, like sending a telegram. Maricela was on the call center floor. She stepped away from her station when she saw the unfamiliar number, because unfamiliar numbers at that hour meant something had happened to her son, and she had trained herself to answer those calls without letting her voice show the fear first. "It's me," he said. She exhaled. "The EPA wants to work with me," he said, "on Aquapath, with their actual scientists, in their actual labs." He heard her move. The specific sound of someone turning away from other people so no one could see their face. "Theo," she said softly. "Yeah? Do you know why any of this is happening?" He thought about it honestly, the way she had always asked him to think about things. Not the first answer, the real one underneath it. "Because of the science," he said. "Because Aquapath is worth something." "Because of the science," she agreed. "And because someone saw you. Someone looked at your photograph in a parking lot and saw not just who you are right now, but who you are going to become." The hotel lobby was quiet around him. A man in a business suit walked past, pulling a rolling suitcase. A woman at the front desk typed without looking up. "Who?" Theo asked. His mother was quiet for a moment. Not the silence of someone who did not know the answer. The silence of someone deciding how much of an answer to give over a hotel phone to a 13-year-old boy who was 4 states away in a borrowed coat. "Come home first," she said. "I'll show you when you get home." He wanted to push. He was her son, and pushing on things until they gave way was a quality he had inherited directly and completely. But something in her voice was different tonight. Careful and full at the same time, like a cup filled exactly to the rim. "Okay," he said. "Okay," she said back. "Now go to sleep. You have an early flight." He hung up the hotel phone and stood in the lobby for a moment. Outside, through the glass doors, Cambridge was dark and cold and alive with the particular energy of a city that runs on ideas. He picked up his hard-shell case. He thought about the 9-year-old girl. He thought about the river. He thought about his mother's voice on the phone, full in a way he could not name. He took the elevator up to his room. He did not sleep for a long time. 3 weeks later, in April 2024, Maricela found something in her mailbox she was not expecting. It was not a bill. It was a white envelope with no return address, and her name written on the front in neat, careful handwriting. The kind of handwriting that belonged to someone who did not write by hand often, but, when they did, meant every letter. She opened it standing in the doorway of the apartment building with the late afternoon light coming warm through the glass door behind her. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No letterhead, no printed name at the top, no signature at the bottom. Just words, written by hand, from the beginning of the page to the end. She read it once, standing up. Then she sat down on the bottom step of the interior staircase, on the old carpet with the pattern that had been fashionable in 1987, and she read it again. The letter was not long. That was the first thing she noticed. She had expected something formal. Something structured the way official things are structured, with paragraphs that introduce themselves before they say anything. This was not that. This was the way a person writes when they are not performing writing, but simply saying something true and have decided that extra words would only get in the way of it. She read it slowly the second time, the way you read something you want to keep. I read about your son's project through someone who believed it deserved to be seen. I want you to know that what he is building is not a school project. It is a real answer to a real problem that the world has not solved yet. He is 13 years old, and he is already asking the right questions, which is rarer than any qualification or credential I have ever encountered in a lifetime of watching people try. I have been lucky in ways that are difficult to justify. I know what it means to have the world see only one version of you and to carry the rest privately. I imagine you understand that feeling better than most. I also know what it is to lose someone before you ever got to find out who they were going to become. That particular loss does not have a bottom to it. You simply learn, over time, to carry it differently. Your son is going to change something real in this world. I know it the way I know certain things, without data or evidence, simply because some truths arrive whole. Please keep going, both of you. There was no signature, but below the last line, pressed carefully into the bottom right corner of the page like a quiet afterthought, was a single additional slip of paper. On it was the name and web address of the Arch Foundation, and below that, in the same neat handwriting, 4 sentences that made her close her eyes. A renewable educational grant has been arranged for Theo through the end of high school. It requires nothing from you. It is already done. He will never have to stop because of money. Maricela sat on the bottom step for a long time. The building hummed around her. Someone above cooked something with garlic. A television murmured behind a closed door. The city outside moved through its afternoon without caring that something enormous was happening on the first floor of a building on Fountain Avenue in East Hollywood. She read the letter a third time. She stopped at the same line she had stopped at the second time. I also know what it is to lose someone before you ever got to find out who they were going to become. She had read something once, filed it in the back of her mind the way she filed the small good facts about the world, the things that made it easier to believe the world was worth the effort of living in it. She had read that on December 24, 1999, a baby girl named Ava Archer Syme Reeves had been born still. That her father had held that grief quietly for 25 years, carrying it the way quiet people carry the heaviest things, without asking anyone to help with the weight. That he had said once, in a single rare interview, that he believed in looking out for children. That every child was someone's entire world. Every child. She folded the letter with both hands. She pressed it against her chest and held it there, above her heart, for a moment that belonged only to her. Then she stood up. She climbed the stairs. She found Theo at the kitchen table, where he always was, at the place where the early mornings happened. his notebook open, his pen moving, his mind already somewhere out ahead of itself, working on the next version of something that was going to matter. He looked up when she came in. She put the letter on the table between them without a word. He read it once. He read it again. She watched his face move through things she recognized because they were the same things her own face had moved through on the staircase. Confusion first, then understanding arriving slowly, then all at once. Then, something that was not quite sadness and not quite awe, but lived in the space exactly between them. He looked up. "Mom," he said. "Who wrote this?" She sat down across from him. She reached into the pocket of her gray hoodie, the one with the bleach stain she had never been able to fix, and she put her phone on the table. She opened the browser. She found the article she had bookmarked 3 weeks ago, after the phone call from Sandra Park, when the feeling she could not name had finally become a feeling she could not ignore. She slid the phone across the table to him. The article was from a grief publication, digitized from its original 2000 print edition. It was about a loss that had happened on Christmas Eve 1999. About a father who had never recovered in the way people mean when they say recovered, who had instead reorganized his entire life quietly around the fact that some people you love do not get to stay. About a man who paid for strangers' groceries and gave subway seats away and funded things anonymously because he had learned, through the worst kind of lesson, that the time you have with people is not guaranteed, and the only sane response to that knowledge is generosity. Theo read it slowly. When he finished, he did not speak immediately. He sat with it the way his mother had taught him to sit with hard things, giving them the full weight of your attention before you decided what to do with them. Outside on Fountain Avenue, a car passed with its radio on. Someone laughed on the sidewalk below. The city did what cities do, enormous and indifferent, and somehow, on certain afternoons in certain small apartments, exactly the right backdrop for a moment that would never leave you. Theo looked up. His eyes were full, not spilling, full. "He lost a daughter," Theo said quietly, "who never got to be anything yet." Maricela nodded. "And then he stood behind us in a line at a grocery store," he said. "And he looked at my picture." "Yes," she said. Theo looked down at the letter again. At the line about losing someone before you find out who they were going to become. He read it one more time, the way you read something you are going to remember for the rest of your life, slowly, giving every word its due. Then he looked at his mother with the wide, dark eyes that had been his father's, and would someday belong to whatever version of himself he grew into. The scientist, the builder, the boy who had started all of this because he could not stop thinking about a girl with a yellow plastic jug and a river that made people sick. "I want to write back," he said. Maricela smiled. "The real kind. The kind that reached all the way up." "I know," she said. "We will." The kitchen was very quiet. The notebook on the table was open to a page of diagrams for Aquapath version 4. Above the desk on the wall, the sentence was still there, where it had always been, in Dr. Whitfield's words, in blue pen on white paper, taped carefully at the corners. "This is not a losing idea. This is an early-stage idea. There is a difference." And beside it now, folded once and taped gently at the top, the letter with no signature. 2 pieces of paper. 2 people who had seen Theo Vega clearly, without being asked to look. Outside, the afternoon light moved across the buildings on Fountain Avenue the way it always did, slow and golden. The way Los Angeles light moves in November when the year is getting tired and the world, despite everything, keeps going. Maricela Vega looked at her son. Her son looked back. And somewhere across the city, in whatever quiet way he moved through the world, a man who had lost a daughter on Christmas Eve 1999 went about his afternoon, not knowing that a 13-year-old boy in East Hollywood had just taped his words to the wall above his desk. Not knowing. But somehow, in the way that certain things work without explanation, perhaps feeling it anyway. In June 2024, Theo Vega was formally named a junior affiliate of the EPA's Office of Water. He was the youngest person in the program's history by 3 years. Aquapath version 4 was tested at a certified laboratory facility at the University of Southern California in August 2024. It filtered collected groundwater to WHO's safe drinking standards in under 4 hours, using materials costing less than $30. Dr. Carla Nguyen called it a meaningful proof of concept. Theo called it the beginning. The Arch Foundation confirmed a 4-year renewable educational grant in Theo's name. The foundation does not comment on its donors. It never has. Maricela Vega left the call center job in September 2024. She enrolled in a dental hygiene program at Los Angeles City College on Vermont Avenue, 3 blocks from the parking lot where she used to eat her lunch alone in the car. She still buys bananas when they are marked down. The letter with no signature is taped to the wall above Theo's desk, next to Dr. Whitfield's sentence, next to the diagrams. Keanu Reeves has never spoken publicly about any of this. He wouldn't. That is exactly who he is.